What's up, everybody? You are back on the Other Side podcast with me, Mike G. And today we sit down with a fighter whose life reads like a powerful narrative of grit, growth, and perseverance. This conversation will dive deep into the heart of a man who has not just survived, but thrived, and how he learned to turn adversity into a platform for authenticity and impact. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce you to the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships light heavyweight champion of the world, D-Day, Josh Dyer. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, it's going great. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. I don't think I've ever had one quite so special in my entire life. So thank you for that. That's gonna resonate pretty deep for a while. It's going freaking great, man. I'm a week out. My hand was pretty much the only thing that was giving me any trouble, and that's almost back to 100%. So the swelling's basically gone. Didn't break anything. Just when you punch a face as hard as Mike Richmond, it tends to do a little damage to you as well. So
yeah, you didn't break anything on you, but his whole. He's all broke.
Oh yeah. But I tell you what, I went and I had lunch with Mike up in Minneapolis. We went to the Rainforest Cafe. He was kind enough to meet up with my family and I, and he pulled his glasses off, and all of his stitches are already gone. And it looks like he barely got scratched compared to the pictures that we saw before. I was actually a little nervous that he wouldn't want to come out in public for a while. I was like, hey man, I'm like, I felt kind of bad asking him. I'm like, but then when he showed up, I was like, are you Wolverine? I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, dude, how did you do that? I'm like, it looks like you just got a tiny little scratch. That's it. And that's only a week out. I'm like, he may not have a mark. I'm like, dude, talk about the greatest recovery I've ever seen. What's that?
I have a mark from seeing that mark.
Wow. Yeah, I have a mark from delivering that mark.
All right, Josh, man, let's go back to the very beginning. Where are you from, and what kind of kid were you coming up? I want to know, were you the nerd? Were you a mama's boy? Were you the shitty little kid that nobody wanted to be around and pick fights? Talk about it.
Yeah, I was a combination of those. So I was first off, I was a little hillbilly from Georgia. I grew up, on a farm. My grandpa, he owned all the land out there. He was the mayor. All my uncles were the sheriffs. We owned the dirt roads and everything. So, I mean, we ran around barefoot. I was the oldest out of all the grandchildren. So, I was always getting everybody into trouble. We were running around, like I said, barefoot, tan, blonde kid, just running, picking up rattlesnakes, enjoying the South. And then my mom, she ended up meeting my stepdad, Lance, a few years later after her first separation. And man, they ended up flying out to Alaska. I got to live up there for a while. And so then I had to understand what civilized life was like. I didn't know you could just, pee in somebody's lawn. I was like, our whole family, we owned everything out there. So everybody that lived on our farm miles away was family. So, we were always just, peeing on trees and stuff, just like living the good old life.
Yeah.
And, so I had to learn a lot of stuff about civilized life and all that. But I've always had that little bit of wild child inside of me, and mixed martial arts gives me opportunity to do that. And so I was moving from a place like Georgia to Alaska. There's a lot of differences,
Sure.
in like how you're raised. And, I was bullied. I was so much different. If you imagine going from Georgia to Alaska, it's as far away as you can get from normal. I'd never heard of a snowsuit. I'd never seen snow. I never experienced that kind of cold before. The elevation was different. And, the daylight, like all that, it would be daylight at 3 a.m. and then it would get dark at midnight for like 3 hours sometimes, and then it'd be daylight again. So we had to get some really good curtains, and then then we moved down to New Mexico, and so I was in New Mexico for a while, and I had to adapt to that. We were living on an Air Force base, and so that was fun. And then we ended up moving to South Dakota, got away from, my dad stopped doing active duty, and got to go to school for a couple of years without dad, being gone for extended periods of time. So we kind of experienced a little bit of normalcy, but I was a bit of everywhere, and then so whenever I arrived in South Dakota, a lot of these kids have known their best friends since they were born. Everybody kind of knew each other, and I was a new guy and trying to like make friends. And for some reason I learned that no matter where I went to, I always was friends with the first dude that like walked up to me and started saying hey. And as it turns out, that's usually a terrible idea, and I don't know why, but yeah, it's always that one that comes up first that typically is not the person to hang out with, because it's like they already ruined their reputation there. So I got labeled as this kid's best friend right away, and he ended up being a dude that I never wanted to hang out with, but I was just trying to be kind. And yeah, so then I got bullied from that shit. Be like, even 4 or 5 years later, aren't you best friends with this guy? I'm like, dude, I'm like, that dude, no, I'm not friends with that guy. I know. But anyway, got into the MMA scene, used to watch George St. Pierre, on TV. He'd always come out and he was wearing that, karate outfit. And he always looked so clean and respectful and kind. And he reminded me a lot of myself. And I was just like, I appreciate a guy that can get in there and win, but doesn't have to act tough. He just knows he's got it. And that kind of like hit a really deep part of who I was. And so I got asked when I was in college if I wanted to do some cage fighting from a friend of mine. He started training me and, I started winning. And I kind of adopted the George St. Pierre mentality where, I never talk shit. I never disrespected my opponents. I was always kind to them. And I did that for about 10 years, made a pretty good name for myself in the Midwest. I was 17-2 as an amateur, went pro, kind of quit training for a while because I was trying to balance the family life and all that. But like in my heart, I was like, I don't really care if I win or lose. I just want to like have some fun. And so I went 4-4. And eventually I was like, if I'm not going to be, I wasn't even training for like a whole year before some of these fights. I just wanted to kind of test myself, see where I was at. And I ended up retiring officially from MMA. And then I had a talk with one of my uncles who unfortunately passed away at this point. But he looked right at me and he was just like, hey, why are you quitting? And I was just like, well, I'm 30 years old now. I haven't made it yet. Every time I get to like this level where I should make it with this fight, I always lose it. I can't seem to win the fights that matter. I can build up an audience and I can get everybody hyped up for a few years and then boom, lose and break everybody's, heart and trust in it. And after a while, I'm like, I can only do that so many times before everyone's going to lose faith in me. I'm like, nobody likes that. So I was like, well, and then he looked at me and he just said, well, Josh, he's like, it's a damn shame because he's like, I know you could have been one of the best. And he just stared at me and didn't say anything else. And I was just like, nobody's ever told me that, like nobody ever just came up to me and was like, Josh, I actually do believe in you. I was always me trying to prove to everybody else that I was good enough. And so when he said that to me, I was like, what? I'm like, nobody can think this. Like I'm an average fighter. I'm nobody good. And then I just started thinking about it and mulling it over. And I was like, it would be kind of right to be cool to prove him right. I was like, and I'm like, what if I am? I'm like, shit. I'm like, I know I enjoy this, but I got to make it. I'm going to make a decision. And so I was like, you know what? Let's give this another run. And I started taking it very seriously. I started developing a very, very dominant mindset about what I was going to do to prepare for these camps and what I was prepared to lose in that fight to secure a victory. And I would just repeat those things over and over and over and over and over. And I started realizing, I'm like, if I build my body strong enough and I get my cardio good enough and my skills are good enough, combined with my mentality, toughness, and aggression, I may be able to overwhelm everybody, even if they're better than me. I should be able to, with a good strategist, I should be able to find a weakness. And if I put all of my energy into exploiting that weakness, everything I have that makes me who I am, and just target that weakness like it's, my only chance, I may be able to beat anybody. And that's kind of what I've been doing. I started, we watch film, we study, I'm basically the Patriots of freaking, bare knuckle fighting. I watch film hours upon hours upon hours. I take notes, I write down, what did they do? What did they do right before they did that? Did they lean their head to the left and it seemed like it didn't mean anything? All right, we're going to mark that down and come back later. And then you find out, oh shit, that little head lean thing in the beginning sets up everything. And I had no idea. And I'm like, wow. So this is actually pretty deep. A lot of times I would make excuses for things that people did. Like it was just like a nothing reason. Then I realized the best fighters in the world, every move they make has a reason behind it. If you can't figure it out, you're not on their level. And so I see a head move, I already know. I'm like, yep, he's setting up the left hand. He wants to see how I react. So next time he can throw that right. So I was just like, hey, I became a studier. I got on YouTube. I studied. Well, I knew I didn't have time to train for hours every day with the best coaches in the world. And I didn't have the money to pay for them. And I just started looking on YouTube, and I started finding there's a lot of good boxing coaches on YouTube. And I would begin watching their training videos, why they do what they say they're going to do, hours upon hours. And then I practice them. Then I watch their fights in slow motion. I'd watch how they train, and then I'd watch how their fighters perform those movements in real time. And I go, okay. And I started to get the feel for it. And I practiced it at home in my basement for like a year. And then I'd write down, like pages upon pages of the best thing that I could take from every single coach. I would be like, all right, out of everything he said, that's the one thing that if I was going to take could change me, could make me a better fighter. I'd write it down and then go to another coach, do the same thing until I got an entire style of the best moves of all the best fighters of all the best coaches. And I'm like, if I just do those things, I don't even have to train boxing for 20 years. I just master their tricks and what made them special. And next thing you know, it's working. And I'm like, I trained 3 times in the last year at an actual boxing gym. That's it. And if you want to talk about like the last 5 years, I don't think I've been to a boxing gym more than 50 times in 5 years. Wow. I study online, I watch video, I practice, I do my own movements. I'll go to the gym and practice those on people, and then I'll come back and it works. And so I'm like, all right, I'm a visual learner. I absorb information through videos better than a coach, because I feel kind of stupid sometimes whenever I don't get something right away from a coach. And then my negative mindset of feeling stupid will kind of cloud my ability to learn from that coach. Because then I start feeling like anxiety. Yeah, because I feel like I'm wasting his time. Like, I should be getting this faster, and I'm sorry that I'm not good enough. And I know you don't believe in me because I can't even.
I get it, man. Yeah.
So then but on a video, I don't have to worry about upsetting anybody, because I'll watch that coach 100 times in a week, and I'll absorb everything over the course of 100 times. But I'll absorb it better than somebody that learns it from a coach 1 or 2 times. But it just takes longer. But over time, I do better. So I learn it deeper. I know every reason for every movement, and that comes in clutch in some key moments as far as reading people goes.
Oh, absolutely, man. I want to know what goes through your mind as you walk to the ring to make your BKFC debut. What does that moment symbolize for you?
When I made my BKFC debut, I was so proud, like, that an organization like BKFC called me, and I didn't know a lot about them, but I did know that they were the best. They were the best bare knuckle organization in the world. The name sounded cool. I'm like, bare knuckle fighting championships. I'm like, sounds believable. They're offering a decent amount of money, and I had just been approached by a manager, probably the worst manager I've ever had. And he told me he could get me into bare knuckle. And I said, well, let's get it. He said, I can get you into bare knuckle fighting championships at least. And so he sent me over a contract. It wasn't the same amount of money that I had agreed upon verbally. And so I asked him about it, and he lied and said, oh, if they made a mistake, they're going to send a new one over, but we need to lock in this fight. So go ahead and, sign it now. And then I'll get you the other one later. No worries. I'm having dinner with Feldman later tonight. We'll get it all inked out. No problem. Don't worry about it. He's like, I'm going to get your shorts. I'm going to get your banner. I'm going to get, a $1,500 sponsor check. I'm getting mailed to you. I'm taking care of everything, your plane tickets, all that. So, I got to the airport. The plane tickets weren't ready. I had one ticket ready. My corners wasn't bought. We got down to Florida. The guy that I was fighting wasn't a nobody like he told me he was. He ended up being, an amateur, kickboxing world champion. And I'd asked him about it before the fight. I called him. I was like, hey, man, he didn't even show up to the fight and didn't have my shorts ready. My banner wasn't ready. I called him up and I was like, dude, I think this guy might be a pretty solid fighter. And he was just like, nah, dude, nah, he's not. He's got a weak chin. All he has is a left cross. And, he's like, we're going to, you're going to run right through this dude. And I was just like, well, all right. Well, I heard he was like a kickboxing champion, and he's like, dude, everybody's a fucking kickboxing champion. He's like, there's so many gyms on every corner. You freaking walk down Cali 2 blocks and there's a kickboxing world champion there. He's like, don't worry about it. And so I was like, well, where are my shorts? He's like, well, they're getting mailed. The banner's getting mailed. And so I'm running around hectic, stressing out my first fight, because I'm like, I'm thinking this dude's lying to me, didn't show up. And then so I went to Target and I was like, fuck, man, I need some shorts. And I'm looking around. I got a couple hours till my fight, because he told me they'd be there at noon on fight day. And so I'm looking, and all I could find was a pair of board shorts looking dumb as hell, with pockets in them. And I was like, I'm going to be so embarrassed wearing this shit. But I bought it, and I'm like, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to beat this dude's ass though. So I was just like, no matter what I wear, I'm like, fuck it. The dumber I look, if I secure that victory, the more, people are gonna be like, who the fuck was that guy?
Yeah.
And so as I was meditating before the fight, I was like, Josh, if you just don't stop punching this dude, you're just going to win, slip his left, rip him with the right, and you do that shit all night long. That's his weakness. He's got that power left hand. And he's a southpaw. And I will say, I am the southpaw slayer. I've never lost to a southpaw, and little fun fact, southpaws only represent, 10% of all fighters, but they also non-linearly represent 90% of champions. So in my head, I was just like, I don't have to be the best orthodox versus orthodox fighter in the world, because I already know the southpaws are going to beat all their asses. So if I can focus on beating southpaws, I just got to beat them and they'll beat everybody else. And so then I could like fast track myself to the top. And that's exactly what I did. Almost every fight I've had in bare knuckle since the beginning was against a southpaw. So I'm like, and I've beaten them all. The only one I lost to, which wasn't a southpaw, was Lorenzo Hunt, and he was an orthodox fighter. But everybody else, Dane Sayers, what's his name? Jared Warren twice, all southpaws. I went against out in Montana, Joe Diesel Riggs, southpaw. I'm like, Mike Richmond, southpaw. I am especially good at slaying southpaws. They expect to be better than everybody they fight. They're used to their moves working, but a lot of them don't realize that every advantage that they have as a southpaw, you also have as an orthodox fighter, but it's just reversed. Yeah. You just practice. You have to know that they're going to feel good when they do that little head movement, because they know they're setting up the left. Well, I know that you're setting up the left. So if I give you my face, which everybody comments on my fights, like Josh Dyer always has his chin up so high,
straight up in the air the whole time.
If you watch any fight, they will say that about me. After my fight, people will call me all day long, Josh, dude, if there's anything you can do better, please just lower that chin. And in my head, I'm like, I know. The reason my chin is that high is because I'm presenting it to you. I'm a counter striker. I'm faster than you. If you throw that left or whatever your power shot is at my chin, I will not be there when you throw it, but you will be. I will put it so close to you that you're like, in your head, you're like, I can't fucking possibly miss.
Right.
I mean, this guy's giving it to me, and then they rip it and I'm gone. Boom. And they're hit so fast, it messes with people. But yeah, so that's, like I said, southpaws, they're so used to dominating people. They're so used to their tricks working, but I turn their best tricks into their worst weaknesses. And that messes with a man. When you get hit really hard, all the shit you've been practicing goes out the window. And the only thing you trust is your best move. But I trained for your best move. I hit you so you would give me your best move, and I put my face there so you were like, I have to, I have to do it. And so I'm just like, oh shit, shoot, boom, and they're ripped. And now after a while, they're like, I don't even feel comfortable firing my best move. So why would I feel comfortable throwing any of my worst moves? And then pretty soon they're gun shy. And I'm like, hey, if you're not throwing punches, you can't possibly win a fight.
Right.
You can't win. So, but that's what I do. I get in people's heads, and then pretty soon every decision they make is the wrong decision, and eventually what they want to do is cover up and just take some shots. They're like, fuck, man, I get hit less, in these barrages than I do getting sniped. I'm like, I might as well just cover up and tire this guy out or something. And then you're finished, because if you knew what I do to people that cover up, my whole style is designed to get you to cover up. Yeah. As soon as you cover up, it's game over. You show me one guy I haven't finished when I got him to cover up. That's end game for me. As soon as you're against the ropes covered up, I will unleash a fury on this individual that breaks willpower. They'll be very interested in stopping. So
speaking of end game, your debut against Warren, the minute the bell rang and your mind processed, okay, I won my debut. People talk about your whole life going by in an instant. Is that kind of how it was for you?
When I got my hand raised, I expected to win so badly that, and I always expect to win. When I go into a fight and win,
Hmm.
I'm I'm not overly emotional. I do have like a lot of adrenaline going through my body from the event
Yeah.
that just took place. So I don't always have the smoothest things to say on the microphone. So
Gotcha.
I would ask, like, can we wait like 5 minutes before you give me a microphone? Cause I'm just like, woo. Yeah. I'm like, I'm ready to roll.
That's
But
hilarious.
I felt like I I'm mostly just overjoyed that I didn't waste all my time, because fighting, it takes a lot of time to be the best in the world.
Hmm.
It takes a lot of time to hang with these guys because
Yeah.
I got a life, I got a business I'm trying to run. I own a painting company. I got 3 kids at home, and I just everything takes a piece of you. So
Mhm.
when I get into that ring, I tell myself right before I get in there, I'm like, dude, every dinner you miss with your family, every night you could have been playing with your kids, like that
Mhm.
all meant something to me.
Yeah.
And I know people would just be like, well, if it meant that much, why are you doing this, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, to answer that question, I would just say I'm doing this because I know I'm the best in the world at it. I knew I was the best when I fought Jared Warren.
Mhm.
Lorenzo proved me wrong, so I had to go and rebuild my whole style.
Mhm.
And now I'm like, okay, now I am the best. But the amount of money you're able to make in this life is going to be directly to proportion to how skilled you are at the job you do. And if you happen to be the best at something on earth, you get to a point to where you can list your price, and your time is now more valuable. So I look at it like, well, if I work really hard for a couple of years, I may be able to spend the rest of my life enjoying every moment with my family. You
Yeah.
know, I don't want to be 60, 70 years old, busting my ass at a 40, 50 an hour job, 70, 80 at this rate. The
Yeah.
economy's looking. I want to be able to see some stuff, man. Like, I don't
Mhm.
want to just live to die. So I'm like, well, I can offer my family way more if I just go and do what I can do now while I'm
Mhm.
healthy, and secures that future. I want to be at my kids' games. I want to be at all these things, but not at the cost of not being able to afford a solid
Mhm.
home. If an emergency bill pops up, it's hard out here right now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, as a man, I got to provide for my family. And right now, the best way I can do that is to go and smash
Yep.
some heads. In
Yeah.
10 minutes, I can make more money than I make in, a couple months. So
Mhm.
if I can just be that good, that would make the most sense now. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
it's all family oriented.
Mhm.
I could care less about fighting, glory, fame. I don't give a fuck. I just want to provide for my family,
Mhm.
and the best way to go about doing that. And if there was
Yep.
something better than bare knuckle, I can promise you I would be doing that. But
Mhm.
I happen to be a damn good painter, so I'm doing my painting business. But I'm nowhere near as good of a painter as I am a fighter. So I'm just trying to prioritize my time to get the
Yeah.
most back.
Absolutely. I want to talk about a few of your fights. One you mentioned earlier against Lorenzo Hunt. What was the game plan going into the fight with Lorenzo, and talk kind of about how the fight played out?
Okay. So my game plan with Lorenzo was to counter his right hand and then snipe him with mine and
Hmm.
rock him and then engage and finish him against the ropes.
Okay.
So I I did not trust myself to close the distance without rocking him first, because
Yeah.
I see how fast he can torque those hooks. So I said to myself, I think he's more of a superior athlete than I am, which is rare. I don't find an athlete that's more athletic than me very often. But I was like, he is the superior athlete here. But if I can snipe him and rock him and drop him from an A plus, brain function down to like a B minus or a C plus, I
Yeah.
might hold a slight advantage just long enough to hit him again and maybe drop that to like a D plus, and then just go in with everything and try to finish him, because I gotta get an advantage somewhere, because
Hmm.
if we're just duking it out, it's at best 50-50 for me. And I
Hmm.
think it's realistically like 60-40 for me, like with him being the better inside fighter. So
Hmm.
I'm like, I got to do this smart. So when I went in, I was like, all right, I'm gonna present my chin so it looks like, he should be able to smash it, and then we'll go from there. And as soon as that bell rang, he ripped a right hand so fast that he knocked my contact clear out of the ring. And I was
Oh
just
wow.
like 1 second into the fight, boom, gone. And
Hmm.
at the time, unfortunately, I'll be that guy. I was double legally blind, dude. My vision was negative 5.75. So, and that's the only reason I chose to fight with contacts in. You know, I was planning on getting LASIK surgery, but I needed money to get it. And I'd been so dominant against my previous opponents up until this point in my career that I didn't feel that I felt like I could get away with it one more time, you know, and Jared knocked it out in round 2, but I was able to secure the victory, even though I was seeing 3 of him, you know, like I was able to do that. But when I was fighting Lorenzo, yeah, I could see him clearly with my right eye. I couldn't see him at all with my left eye. And I'm talking like it was just a big blur. And then in the middle, you know, your eyes try to make that third one where it combines them. Then there was him. And so I'm like, all right, trying to aim for the middle. But I was like, it wasn't popping off for me. And so I got dropped for the first time in my career that fight. And that was like in 10, 15 years. He caught me to the throat through a right hand, right to my aorta, shut my brain down. And I passed out for like 8 seconds. I woke up, I got up to my feet, and the ref's like, do you want to continue? And I was like, sure, why not? And I'm looking around, I'm like, why is Lorenzo standing in the ring with me?
He essentially choked you out with a punch.
Basically, yes. And I'll be honest, I thought that was not a real thing before that fight. You know, like you ever watch Austin Powers, and you know, as a fighter, you know, you see all this fake shit on TV, and you're like, yeah or no. Well, when he would do that Juno chop on people, and then people would just go to sleep, I'm like, no fucking chance. I'm like, I hit people so fucking hard and they don't get knocked out sometimes. I'm like, that stupid Juno chop would never work. But I will rescind that statement. If you take a massive enough shot to your aorta, it will separate that blood for a second and you will be like that. So that sucked balls. And so yeah, I got up and then I started remembering, I'm like, oh shit, I'm in a fight. I'm like, I see my corners. They're like, come on over, dude, come on over. I walk over. I'm like, oh shit, I can't see. I'm like, contact. And so then we brought 5 just in case. Cause I was like, man, I know Lorenzo's going to be popping these suckers out. So I popped one in and I was like, all right, whoo, I'm back. I'm like, let's go get this. Went out. I would say I won round 2 against Lorenzo Hunt. You know, if you watch the whole fight, it's going to be hard to feel that way because it was such a shitty experience altogether. But I clipped him, you know, I sniped him with that slip and rip, you know, multiple times. I sent him to the corner, his face was all bloody. That my plan was popping off in round 2. I got him against the ropes, hit him with a nice combination, boom, rocked his teeth, got him a little bit rocked too, but he had a great poker face and he started throwing some huge right hooks, and I thought maybe it wasn't safe enough. So I backed up a little bit, gave him some space, and right before the round ended, he threw a huge right hand. I slipped it and boom, caught him right against the face, ripped his head sideways, bell rang. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm back. You know, went to my corner and I was like, contact stayed in. I can see, you know, I'm like, that was a hell of a first round. I just kind of needed to, you know, kind of get my confidence back a little bit, you know, then if you watch the corner talk, you know, he walked over all frustrated and his dad's like, what's wrong? And Lorenzo was just like, and then he like spit some blood out and you could see blood all in his teeth. And he was just like, and his dad's like, he's like, relax, hit him with the 3-piece, start at the back, all the way through. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? You know, as I was watching him say that, I was like, what does that mean? And yeah, I remember then he comes right back, they ring the bell, he moves a little bit, and then he goes, 1, 2, 3, and just blasted me in the face with the hardest left hook I have ever been hit with. And I flew back, man. I flew back straight to the canvas, and then I slid like, and then those canvases have grip. You know, like you can squeak on them a little bit. Squeak. They got grip. They're not slippery. And I slid on that canvas, like squeaking like another 5 feet, just like, and I was like, I remember laying there and I was just like, whoa. I got back up to my feet and I was like, I think I just got hit by a truck. Like, that was something else. And then my confidence was basically gone after that. I was like, shit, man. I'm like, all right, better watch out for that punch now. And so I'm like, this guy can generate some massive power on those three punch combinations. And so I started trying to work some shit again. Not so much happened. And then I barely survived round 3. Round 4 comes out. You know, he comes in doing this karate shit. He's like, oh. And I was like, oh, he's getting cocky. And so he came up, got a little too close, and dropped it down a little bit, and I sniped him with a right hand right over the top. I was like, boom, yeah. And then he came back for like 3 more punches. Bah, bah, bah. And I was just like, damn it. I'm like, I cannot rock this guy. And then we got into another exchange. You know, he threw like 7 punches. I started ripping. You know, I blasted him with 2. I got him with a left, right, boom, boom. But he got me with like 4. And so I was like, bam, 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 bam. Like, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, you know, 6-4. I'm losing that exchange. I wish I would have dropped him. And then, you know, he ended up, I think, you know, dominating me for the rest of round 4. Round 5, we went out. You know, ended up coming at me with a couple combinations, hit me in the actual stomach organ so hard that I was puking up blood later, you know, like, and started blasting again, knocked my contact out again in round 5. And I was just like, shit, man. I'm like, and I was able to see I think in round 3. Yeah, no, round 3, he knocked it out again. Yeah. So then, because I was getting him against the ropes and I was feeling real good. And then all of a sudden my contact, he didn't even have to hit me. It just friggin' fell out. And I was like, shit. You know, so I started backing up, and that's when he started coming again. Bam, 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 bam. And dropped me with the uppercut. And I was just like, man, this is freaking turning to be a rough night, man. I'm like, fuck. So anyway, yeah, round 5, he dropped me for that last time. And I was just like, fuck it. It's not getting any better for me. You know, so I ended up just calling it, man. Freaking went home feeling like a piece of shit. I couldn't eat for like a week. I couldn't put a sentence together for like a month. Like I'd be talking to people, and then I would think I was still talking, but my mouth wouldn't be moving, no words coming out. And so I would wonder why they were looking at me like they didn't understand me. And they were like, hey, man, I'm like, you kind of quit talking like halfway through. And I was like, are you serious? And they're like, yeah. They're like, all right.
Dude.
Yeah. So my best friend would like, who I worked with at the time every day, you know, we'd be talking. And then next thing you know, he'd be like, hey, man, remember to use your words. And I was just like, I quit talking again. He's like, yeah. And he's like, you're just like nodding at me. You're nodding at me like you assume I can hear you, but I can't. And so I was like, all right. And so for like another like 6 months, I had to have my best friend, you know, remind me to talk. And I just found myself in like a very depressed state. It was very difficult to like want to talk to people. I just felt like kind of like a hermit. I felt like my personality changed a little bit. And I remember I quit training for like a year, and I was thinking about quitting and not quitting, but I started watching these Dominant Cruz videos, and I started like seeing how he was able to use footwork drills to manipulate larger and stronger opponents. And I was like, and then I found out he was the least hit fighter of all time for like 7 years straight, as he was the dominant champion. So every fight he was fighting was against the second best guy on earth, and he was the least hit fighter in the whole UFC. And I was like, that's a big deal. And then, you know, then people were like making fun of him, calling him the decisionator, because like he never finished people.
Right.
And I remember thinking to myself, I'm an 85er. I'm a pretty big 85er. He's like a 35, 40er. So I'm like, maybe only he can hit these drills, movement patterns, because, you know, that seems to be like why nobody else is doing it. Maybe he's just special. And I started listening to like his podcast, and he was like, guys, I'm not special. I learned the movements. And so I started studying his angles, his movement patterns, the power he could generate by turning his hips a certain way, how it was both defensive and offensive in his escape routes and his feints and his setups. And, you know, he's always I started practicing those drills in the basement. And after the 9 months, I really started to understand why his style works. And I realized I could build a championship style. And so I imagine myself with the Dominic Cruz footwork drills. Maybe I won't be as fast as him, but I could be maybe close. And I'm like, I might not have the cardio to keep it up for 5 rounds, but what if I also had the power to finish people while using those drills? What if I use those drills to deliver those safe shots like he's talking about, but only when I connect, it's over?
Mhm.
And so I'm like, let's do this. And so I combine, strength training with the footwork drills, with the movement patterns, with a little Mike Tyson, and I just started like moving. And then I'm like, I can generate massive kinetic energy with his footwork drills. And then combine that with, the number one strength and conditioning program in the world. I'm like, I'm competitive and I got a great chin. So
Yeah.
I built a style and I told myself, I'm like, I'm going to test this style. And I was scared to test it because, I made it. And a lot of times I make shit, it doesn't work. So I was like, well, I'm going to test this on Dakota Cochran since I got the call already. And this will be my deciding factor. If I can't beat Dakota with this style, then I wasted the last year of my life.
Right.
And, the doubts in my head were like, Josh, if this was as good as you think it is, other people would be doing it. And, all the best fighters in the world have coaches that are the best coaches in the world. You're just trying to be sneaky and cheap, doing all this shit on Facebook and, like you're doing it all backwards. And, you just got to understand that if it worked, more people would do it. And so I was like, fuck it, man. Maybe I made a huge mistake, and so I was like, well, I guess we're going to find out. And so then I went and I fought Dakota Cochran and I beat him in 90 seconds. And I was just like, well, I at least know that my style does work,
Yeah.
but it needs improvements, right? Because he caught me with some shit too. But my style is effective. And so then I critiqued it, started adding more things to it, and I started to see how it was working on people. And I was just like, I'm really actually doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think I've got the right ideas. I need to keep adding weapons and figuring out what works, what doesn't, throw out what doesn't, and just keep the things going that do work. And now I'm finding it that I'm a very confusing fighter to watch, or not watch, but to fight. Like when I fight somebody, it's more of a mental game for me than physical, but I also make sure that my physical is light years ahead of theirs. So that way, when I show up, I want to be faster, stronger, smarter. I want to know your style better than you know mine. I want to have all these tricks set up for all your traps and, everything, so that when I walk in there, I'm like, if I was a mathematician, I would look at this and say, dude, there's like a 95% chance you're going to win this, and that to me is a good bet. So like that's what I go with, and I'm like, when I enter, I'm like that. I'm so confident I'm going to win that when I get that belt, or they raise my hand, like I said, it's not much of a surprise to me,
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of goofy, but I'm a creator. Like I
Gotcha.
created a style, and that's what Dominic Cruz did. He created a style. He didn't have someone teach him it. And
Right.
the thing is when you create a new style, there's a period of time it takes for people to learn it. And once they learn it, yeah, they beat the shit out of you. But until they learn it, you beat the shit out of everybody. My style is designed to beat every style out there. Like it's just like Dominic Cruz. I wanted a style that was effective against every style it came up with, where it neutralizes your best weapons and it makes them your biggest weaknesses. And it's a very cerebral, like fighting style. And I take calculated risks while I'm in there. So that way, every exchange, I want to have the advantage. I don't want to put myself in situations where where it's 50-50, because to me that's as a betting man, you can only go 50 and 50 so many times, right? If you carry a 50-50 mindset over 20 fights in your career, you're probably going to be a 10 and 10 fighter. So I want to be 20 and 0. I want to be like that kind of thing. So
After you beat Dakota, you couple of funky no contests, but then you took on William Albrecht. I want to know what was Sturgis like, and tell us about the 46 seconds required to get that win.
yeah, so Sturgis was pretty cool. I knew that the elevation might be a factor, and I would say I didn't have the best camp leading up to that. Is my busy season for painting. Bare Knuckle has a real knack for calling me during my busy season and then not calling me when I'm completely available for like 6 months. So I'm just like, it's very difficult for me, especially financially, because it's like I could be making good money all year long if we just got the time figured out. So I'm gonna talk with them. They didn't do it on purpose. I've never voiced that. I'm just saying, just coincidentally for the last 6 years, it hasn't been great as far as scheduling goes. But Sturgis was good. We went over his weaknesses, what we thought he was going to do, and we knew he had length on me, and so I like countering everybody. but long people especially, you got to counter them. You got to get them to fire their long range archery weapon first, because then it takes them a little longer to put that next arrow in.
Bring it back.
So if I can get them to fire it, I know I'm safe for like a quarter second, so I can close that distance and get something. But we were working on countering his left and working on countering his right, and I like to lure my fighters into like certain like patterns. With southpaws, I don't do it as much because I have to fight southpaws my southpaw slayer way, which means it basically takes away all the things that make me effective against orthodox guys. So when I fight orthodox guys, you see me, like, I'll do like this little U shape movement pattern back and forth, and I'll lure them in. With Dakota, I lure them like that. All my orthodox fighters, which is not many, you'll see me do my little U shape now. Now I'm trying to get you to chase me, and no matter when you start chasing me, and you build that forward momentum, if you enter my danger zone, I'm going to hit you with a hook that is combined with me running away. So I'm going to get out of your range, and then I'm going to torque my hips, and then all the momentum I just generated to go that way is going to translate into a murderous hook, and you're going to run into it. You're going to run into it, and it is going to be it's going to devastate you. And so if I can get a fighter to chase me, I promise you there's a very high chance that they're going to get hit with the hardest shot that I can possibly throw, and also possibly the hardest shot they've ever been hit with in their life. And yeah, he walked right into our trap. And I don't have many fights that I get that off on people, but it's a relatively new trick that I learned on accident. And I'm like, everybody expects me to pressure them. So naturally, I would assume their coach would tell them to pressure me. And so I would assume that if I could simulate that I'm running away, they might feel more confident than if I was coming at them, in which case they would start striking, which is when you are the most vulnerable, and they're coming forward, which with me is when you're the most vulnerable. So I'm like, and since I'm running away, any shot you hit me with, even if you do hit me with it, since I'm moving away from you, it's going to be mitigated by at least 70%. So it's a fair trade. Like, I look at that, like, even if I get caught, the damage that I do is going to be so much more than yours that I can make that trade. And that's a worst case scenario trade. I'll try not to get hit, which I didn't get hit with Bill. So, or Wild Bill. Yeah. I didn't get hit with him. I was just far enough out of range, swiped down his punch, which gave me the distance to know I could land the hook, and boom, slapped him. And so, yeah, that fight went so beautiful. I didn't know Connor was going to be there. I didn't know that he was going to like make a video of him jumping out of his seat and stuff. That was cool. And then, he hung out with us that night a little bit. It was cool. Like we went around Sturgis, we got a couple drinks and stuff, and just had a very, very good time. Got to chat it up with, good old Chris Lytle, Sean Wheelock, and just kind of suck it in a little bit, just feels good. Like, all right, Sturgis, business is done. Let's hang out a little bit. We stayed up to like 2 a.m. just walking around. I'd never been to Sturgis, so I just wanted to watch. I got to, get some burning hot motorcycle tire, stuck to my leg. Friggin', I'm just like, oh, sweet. Tar, burning, love it. Can't get it off because it's sticky as it slowly burns a hole through my whole leg. I'm just like, I love it.
That's hilarious, man. All right. This one's a little tougher than the last one. You've taken your hits inside the ring, but if you could talk about a time where maybe life has knocked you down and how you recovered from it.
I've been through a lot of shit in my life. And, the biggest thing for me would just be, like in my bare knuckle journey, in my MMA journey, like I neglected my family quite a bit. Not intentionally, I wanted to become the best, so I can give back to them. But regardless, they're going to look at you like you're just not there, and I'm like, I want so badly to just give to them. And it cost me a couple relationships. I lost, lost kids with my first daughter was with my ex-wife, and I wasn't around much. I was always trying to work, and had my own trauma from childhood that I was trying to deal with, and obviously she had hers. And then get in your next relationship, have some more kids, and you're trying to build that family life, and just with how expensive things are and just the time commitments that it takes to be away, sometimes it's easy to neglect the family, in the name of trying to be a man, trying to provide.
Sure.
But like I was never the best provider because, cage fighting and bare knuckle truly doesn't pay until you get to the very, very, very top. And even then, it's not great. Like you still gotta work your ass off. And so it's not like golf where you hit a ball and they give you $1 billion. Like this is a sport where it's mostly the people that watch this have a hard life too. Like they can relate, like, they didn't have many things handed to them. They've been through shit. They understand why fighters fight sometimes. And sometimes we think it's our only way to get ahead in life because the hand we were dealt. Like, I had severe ADHD. I can't sit behind a desk. I don't want to waste my life, sitting inside in some cubicle. Like I am a very like action oriented person. And so it's like, I have to be in a career field where I feel like I'm not only in an efficient career field where my time is actually worth me being there, but that I can still enjoy myself enough to come home and be a family man while at the same time, like making a difference in the world. Like I want to be able to, spread some truths out there that are absolutely against what mainstream is talking about. I want to help people to wake up. We were lied to about a lot of shit, borderline everything. And so I'm just like, I'm sitting back watching this and feeling like guilt in my heart for like not trying to share some things. Like there's people out here that are literally like trying to kill you, like literally telling it to your face, and people just watch their TVs and they're just like, I'm sure they don't really mean that. And I'm just like, yeah, well, why don't you do like 16,000 pages of research on, the National Institute of Health and PubMed.gov and government websites like I have, and you realize not only are they doing this to you, like they're doing it to your kids, they're doing it to, it's a lot of shit going on, man. And so I got to be careful that I don't, talk too much about that. My accounts get banned pretty frequently. I share a lot of things that I would say are extremely truthful, but not everybody's cup of tea. And I don't want to lose my whole platform by talking about it. But if I can save a couple people out there from making some decisions because they were educated nefariously, disingenuous people lied to you about things and you thought you were making a good decision and you hurt people, or you hurt yourself. And I'm like, that's something that I can't stand for. Not only was I bullied as a kid, but I had trouble like standing up for myself, but I could always stand up for somebody else. If I saw another kid getting bullied, I could become Superman for that kid. But when I was the one being bullied, I noticed that it hurt me to hurt somebody else more than it hurt to get bullied. And so I took a lot of shit, and I just let them give it to me. And, eventually a few times I beat the shit out of some kids, and like, I remember how much it hurt me, like seeing the look on their faces, like them crying. And I'm just like, damn, I'm like, did he really deserve that? I'm like, I don't know. Like, sucks, cause like, I'm so cool. I'm calm all the way up until I snap, and some people just push you that edge. And I'm like, I just couldn't control that. And, I like standing up for people, and when I see a bully that's, so much more powerful than, the average person that is just pissing on people, like just doing the worst shit you could ever imagine. I look at that and I'm just like, well, is anybody else going to do anything about this? No. All right. Well, fuck, somebody has to. So I'm like, might as well be me. So I'm like, I'll take on anybody by myself. I'll take on whatever. But, where there's, there's not so good, you got to have some good, or else you just have not so good. And, I got a lot of haters. I got a lot of people that consistently message me and they call me out on shit. And it's just like, hey, at the end of the day, it's all coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of many, many, many mental breakdowns due to the research that I did. And, the government's own words, like I read their own paperwork, their own words. And I'm just like, this is pretty bad. So anyway, I'm like, part of winning this championship made me feel like I would actually have a little bit of credibility too. Like I've been sharing things for years now, and and I'm just like, nobody really believes in somebody that can't back up what they say they're going to do, so I'll be like, hey, I'll reveal a few truths to you guys. I can't reveal everything because you guys were fucking retarded and you're going to ban me and also probably going to get murdered. But I don't know where I was going with that. I lost train. I get in these like once I get emotionally
right,
involved,
man.
I can't. But
I can tell you're emotionally involved.
I like
There's
the
nothing
little
wrong with
man,
that.
brother. I like the little man. That's all I'm
There you
saying.
go.
Is somebody
There we
needs to
go.
fight for the little guy, and that's what I'm here for.
Bare knuckle Robin Hood.
Damn right.
All right. What separates a good fighter from a great one, especially in the bare knuckle fighting championship?
That's a deep one. The difference is who's willing to show up with everything. There's a lot of guys that got a couple tricks. They got a couple strengths. They've got a couple other things. But you got to look at fighting like it's a game of chess, But in this game of chess, you don't have to show up with the exact same number of pieces as the other opponent. Mm-hmm. You're in control of your own game of chess. So, for example, I could show up and play you with 10 chessboards if I wanted to. I could have 10 queens, 10 kings, 10 rooks, 20 rooks, 20 bishops. I could have 40 fucking pawns. I could have 100 pawns. I control my own game. And so when I show up, I'm like, I can even start the game with my pieces already slaying you. If I control the way this game works, then why wouldn't I show up with the highest possible chance of beating you? So I look at it like, is my brain healthy enough? Do I have the correct nutrients to think properly? How's my nerve impulse speed? Well, I know our body isn't just water in there; it's salt water, which means essentially you're a salt battery. If you drop a battery in a glass of water, nothing happens. But you add a little salt to it, it becomes conductive, and now impulses get transferred. So, do I have enough salt? Right? Would my brain send a signal to my muscles faster if I had more salt? As it turns out, yes. Right. There's a lot of things that you need to take care of. Am I smarter than my opponent? Like, am I doing things to increase my brain speed? Well, yeah. You can do that with something as simple as juggling, which is the only thing in the world that actually increases the size of your brain.
Oh, wow.
That's a big deal, right? There's, am I a well-rounded fighter? Can I fight as good as I can orthodox as I can southpaw? Can I flow between them? Yeah. Well, why is that? Well, because when you can flow, not only can you generate massive momentum when you switch stances and hook power, but you're more confusing. So you're also defensive and offensive, and you also have access to another 180 degrees of angles to both attack and defend. So you're now a harder puzzle to solve. Am I okay? So we got that. Am I stronger? Yeah, I'm stronger. Am I cutting more weight? Yeah. All right. How's my cardio? Well, we're going to make sure it's there. Physically, there's a chance that they have me beat in the cardio area because muscle requires oxygen. But at this time, we know that bare knuckle fighting is a sprint, not a marathon. Well, sprints use sugar instead of oxygen, right? So doesn't matter how much oxygen you can transform. How much sugar is in your body? Well, your body carries about 20 minutes of glucose, which is twice as long as a fight. So I don't need much oxygen, and I don't need much protein in my system either because it's going to burn the glucose first. So I drink a whole bottle of honey. So now I've got all the sugar and glucose that I need in my body for those quick impulses. I'm going to fire everything fast. I train to be able to breathe too. I'm fully hydrated. I'm stronger. I'm faster. I'm more explosive. I'm smarter. I know I've been studying your video like a champion. Like my preparation is so that when I walk in there, there's almost no chance that you can beat me.
Right.
But it's always possible, but there's almost no chance. And that's how I view it, right? Somebody else might look at that and say, bro, you're way off in your percentages. But when I take into consideration every single thing I do, I eat a whole beet right before. Well, that increases your body's ability to transfer oxygen, and I'm talking like a softball sized beet. I drink a jar of cayenne pepper, which increases your blood flow by triple. Oh, surprise. Who knows these things? I'll tell you who. Dude that reads 16,000 pages worth of research on government websites and figures out that you need shit in your body. You function better when your blood is slipperier. Oh, well, how do you make it slipperier? Add some olive oil in your diet. So now when my heart beats, it's pumping triple the blood with half the ease, or because it's slippery. It's like, so now all of a sudden people are like, how can this dude keep up this pace? Why is he so fast? How can he counter people like that? Why does he leave his chin so high, but yet he doesn't get a hit very much? And I'm just like, I put myself in a position to where I believe there's almost no chance I can lose, which then increases my confidence like you wouldn't believe, right? Confidence is tied to how much effort you put into it. If you know in your heart that you train 10 times harder than this other dude, your level of confidence is going to be higher. If you know that you didn't put the work in, you only got 3 rounds of cardio, and you know that if you can't knock him out, you're fucked. That's going to bother you when you're going to sleep. It's going to bother you when you're doing your workouts. It's going to bother you when you're training. It's going to bother you all the way up because in your heart, you don't deserve it. Mm-hmm. You didn't put enough in. You're leaving it too much to chance. And so, the difference between a confident fighter and a non-confident fighter is a victory. And so I know that being confident is not a feeling, it's an action. You take an action and now you become confident. Which now bolsters your mindset, and you convey that, you project it out, and then next thing you know, your opponent is sensing that. Now he's going, shit, man, this dude in every way possible is conveying complete confidence. Maybe he knows something I don't. Maybe I didn't train hard enough for this fight. Like maybe he actually is who he says he is, and I just made a huge fucking mistake. And then now they're going to sleep that night like, shit, man. They're trying to talk to their girlfriend. Hey, babe, like, I don't know. This might be my last one. I might have made a mistake. Like, what do you think, sweetie? Like, do you think I'm like, I can beat him? And then she's over here feeling like, what the fuck is this guy talking about right now? She's like, instantly loses attraction for this man. And she's just like, shit, no, I think you're going to be fine. I think you're just overthinking it. She's already thinking about leaving the relationship. And then they get into a big fight in 30 minutes because he was just looking for a little bit of validation. She thinks he's a pussy. And now they're fighting and arguing. Now they're definitely not sleeping. And I'm just like, hello? I'm like, freaking planted these seeds from the beginning. I got you, bro.
That's hilarious, dude. Oh shit. All right, Josh. May 10th, less than 2 weeks ago, you took on Mike the Marine Richmond for the BKFC Light Heavyweight Championship of the World in Salt Lake City. What was your mindset going into that fight, and talk us through your incredible performance?
Let's see. So my mindset going into this fight was I can't lose this one. And that's my mindset going into every fight. But I just meditate on that. Like, hey, man, listen, if you lose everything. Like, nobody likes a loser. They like guys that, and women that can get into a ring specifically and always find a way. You want somebody to like be a diehard fan. You can't let them look stupid. You do represent them, because if they start talking shit to people, and then you prove them wrong, they look dumb as fuck to all those people they just talked to, right? Yep. You want to have a murderous Conor McGregor-like following where it's like cult-like and they're out there like freaking spreading the vibe, okay? They have to have so much confidence in you that they can talk that level of shit and know that no matter what happens in that ring, you are going to back them up and they're going to walk out feeling like validated as hell. Nothing sucks more than rolling into enemy territory and your group of 20 people talking shit to 3,000 people, and then you lose. And then you get to walk out with your head held low and your whole team now feels dumb as fuck. Everybody's laughing. Fucking told you, like, then your team doesn't even want to like be a part of it. I'll tell you right now, I've witnessed it. I've been through this. I've like lived that life. And so when I roll into, Jared Warren's hometown, shit like that, when I roll in, they always fly me out, but a lot of hometowns, when I roll in, I make sure that my team talks as much shit as possible. I'm like, you guys, when you're out there, y'all cheer, you scream, talk shit to everybody. I don't care. I'm like, spread it. And guess what? I'm going to back it up in the ring. And then we're all going to walk out while 3,000 people are so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. That's what I'm going to give you guys tonight. So let loose, let your own warrior spirit flow out, scream your lungs out, make this night a great time. You guys enjoy this sport, just let loose. You're here with me. I got your back. like, let's go handle business. And we do. And then people have a very good time. We're always renting supercars, Porsche friggin' Taycans. We got friggin' Beamers, the Lambo doors. I'm like, we're going to roll around like we own the place, even though we're broke. Right. But everybody's going to assume for one night we're cool. So I'm like, we're going to live it up. Like, right. We're those freaking kids trying to break our way up into the middle class. Let's get there. Like, can we just get there and then work our way through it? But, we're just having a good time, and it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. I wanted to ask you about your nickname, D-Day. Where did it come from and who gave it to you?
I gave it to myself. So the first nickname that I was given was Ken Doll, which still will show up if you look for it in the right places. And, I never picked that name. I didn't, I was like kind of fond of it because it felt cool. I was 18 years old and I was like, yeah, it's whatever. My old gym just called me it. Like, they just started calling me it forever. Like years went by and like people were like, well, like, what's your even real name, bro? And I'm just like, Josh. And like, I swear to God, I thought your name was Kendall. I'm like, because they call you Ken Doll, so that's what we thought. I'm like, yeah, nope, that's fucking hilarious. But we all had our own nicknames in the gym, and but they're the ones that told that to the fighting organizations, and they ran with it. Okay. And so I was that for a while, and then but I wasn't like a big fan of it, and so I became D-Day. When I announced my professional career, because I was thinking about my style, and I was like, well, I do hit really freaking hard, be like dropping bombs on people, and I also just never stop. Like, no matter who I fight, I just run through them. Even if I lose, I'll still run you through to that last bell, and you'll be like, holy shit, this dude's a zombie. And so I was like, I'm just going to call myself D-Day. Plus my last name's Dyer. So like nicknames that start with the same letter of the last name kind of have a cool ring to them. So I was just like, D-Day Dyer kind of seems better than Kendall Dyer. So I was just like, let's get it. And so, I started, going that route, and it went pretty fun.
Awesome. All right. What's the game plan now, Josh? Who do you want to fight next?
Ideally Perry, man. He is the money fight, right? He's the money fight. He said he wanted it. He's on Instagram saying he wants it. I want it. I'm on Instagram saying I want it. And I think it would be good for me and him, mostly just me though, in a couple of different ways. Yeah, he'll get an opportunity to win the belt. And he does have a murderous chin. He hits super freaking hard. It will probably be a bloody-ish fight, a lot of damage to our hands and stuff. It'll be one the fans will enjoy because I don't get knocked out. Thank God. I got a chin from the heavens, and he kind of does too. So, and we both hit fucking hard. So I'm like, this will be interesting. I'm not sure he'll catch me. Mike, I think, is a better sniper than Mike, or Richmond's a better sniper than Perry is, but I mean, I proved that night I could snipe at the best of them. So I mean, if he thinks that he's gonna try to catch me, I don't know, dude. I'm pretty good with my timing, man. I'm like a rattlesnake. Get you. You come a little bit forward into my range,
yeah,
you get smacked.
All right. Any fighter, any combat sport, any era. Give me your Mount Rushmore of fighters. Who are the best 4 fighters to ever live?
Dominic Cruz for his weight division. Mike Tyson for like the power and the fear that he put into everybody he fought. His style was beautiful to watch and truly ahead of its time. Both of those guys, very influential in my style. John Jones for just being a person that has the fight IQ combined with the body and the length to be able to just be an unsolvable puzzle for people. So some have come close, and I will say that Dominic Reyes may have squeaked that one out. I'm not, the jury's out on that one. But I think that consistently he's the best fighter in the world, and he gives you a great blueprint. And then shit, I don't know, man. I got to throw Lorenzo. I'm gonna throw Lorenzo Hint up in there, just because he's more current. Like Lorenzo Hunt and bare knuckle is actually a pretty fucking well built dude. Like he's pretty fucking good. I think that I will be a lot more competitive now than I was before, assuming that we ever fight again. But I would never put money on myself to win. Like, nah.
Wow.
I mean, he is a very, 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 very difficult fighter to solve. And I mean, I'll say Richmond came pretty fucking close for a minute solid. I mean, he did something that I'd never seen before. And that haunted my dreams for a little while. I mean, because I thought Lorenzo was the baddest dude in the world, and he secured that victory. I will say that what Mike did to him was extremely terrifying, knowing who Lorenzo is and what he can do to people. So that was pretty crazy. But yeah, I'm gonna say Lorenzo Hunt for his dedication to the sport, and the threat that he poses against every single person he fights, the power he brings. He's tricky, he's slick, he's got good blocks, he's fast. So in this realm, I'll say he's on his own level. I think that heavyweight fight could have gone a little differently had he not popped his elbow out. I'm not going to say he had a guaranteed win because Mick had a lot of advantages, and Lorenzo, had a couple. I don't know how it was going to play out. I would have really enjoyed watching that one all the way through. He was blazing a trail, friggin' just to show that he can hang. And Mick is not a fun guy to fight. Very long. He can hit you with an uppercut if you're short, and all sorts of stuff. But I would say that's my Mount Rushmore.
Okay. These next few questions are questions I bet you haven't been asked in an interview before. They're kind of designed to bridge the gap between professional fighter and dude in Arkansas or just a random person. People who don't fight view fighters as having something different. There's something different about you because we're not going to get in that ring. We're not going to get in that cage, but something about you gives you the ability to do that. So these questions are designed to make you seem less terrifying and more normal to the regular guy. So here we go. My first question is, what do you like better, pulled pork or brisket?
Probably go with the brisket. The flavor is going to be pretty comparable. I do like the texture of the pork, but I've kind of ixnayed pork from my life. A lot of potential parasites and stuff like that, which sucks because I'm from South Georgia, dude. We're the barbecue freaking capitals. I'm just trying to take my body to the next level, and I'm noticing that even if it's just a little bit, the less I can keep in of like the bad shit, the better I perform. So I'll take a smoked like beef brisket, just because I know it's gonna taste amazing and hits the spot really well. But if we're going for flavor wise, that pulled pork is freaking hard to beat, man. It's real hard. You get some honey up in there, a little bit of nice some seasoning, a little bit of kick to it, little Louisiana jerks, turn into an Alabama slammer, and next thing you know, you eat till you're full, and then you eat a little bit more, and then like the taste is still so good, you just kind of like, I'm just gonna eat a little bit more. Next thing you know, you're like hospitalized, your freaking stomach is exploding. Yeah, you can't move for like 6 hours. You're like, I fucked up, and then you're still considering eating a little bit more. You're like, what's wrong with me?
Well, if you were ever in Fayetteville, Arkansas, you give me a call. When I'm not interviewing fighters on YouTube, I work in a 23-time world championship winning barbecue restaurant as a pit master. You come see me, I'll hook you up with all the brisket you can eat, brother.
You can count on that. Yep.
All right. Best Rocky movie.
It's going to be hard to beat Clubber Lang. He had to overcome some shit. He had to overcome the mental. Getting his ass whooped like that. Becoming the champ, losing the edge. I think about that a lot. Because it's like once you become the champ, a lot of people lose that edge and the hunger and the fire. And what do you do once you get it? It's like the dog chasing the mailman. What do you do when you catch him? You're like, shit. So I liked the Rocky 3 probably more than any of the other ones.
Me too.
The Ivan Drago fight was cool. Training his prodigy, and the 5th one was okay. But it just felt like it was losing it. It was losing its Rockiness. Rocky 3 was definitely the pinnacle. And really just Clubber Lang looked so scary, dude, all oiled up and shit. Like his muscles look so shiny. Like I was like, this guy, and he looks so imposing and scary. I'm like, I kind of want to like impose that kind of fear onto people when I'm fighting them. Because if you could make people scared of you and like running and like, oh, I don't want to be here, it makes it so much harder for them to process like your game changes and stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
like, whatever,
All right.
man.
Am I more likely to catch you drinking a cup of coffee or an energy drink?
Not many of either of those. But
Okay.
I do. I just had a cup of coffee this morning, and I think it's maybe the third-ish cup of coffee I've had in my whole fight camp. I kind of chill out. I noticed that coffee in caffeine in general kind of dehydrates me a little bit. And so I kind of noticed a slight decrease in performance and stuff. So I'm just like, you got to be kind of careful
Right.
with it. I don't know if it's just, I think it might be coffee specifically. Cause I think they found like 90% of coffee comes with like this weird mold and it produces a toxin that kind of gets you. So I don't know if it's that or what, but I definitely chilled out on the coffee, but I will take coffee any day. Energy drinks I just can't get behind them.
Not even
I try.
the bucked up pre-workouts.
I did become an ambassador for their program. I filled out everything. I haven't sold anything. I wanted to see like all their ingredients, and I went through and I studied them all. And I will say that Bucked Up does have one of the best ingredients lists, and I check the shit out of ingredients lists.
I believe you.
I do. And so I will say that they are very, very, very good. I still haven't tried much of it just because I like to be as natural as possible, but it definitely seems like it can come in clutch.
Hell yeah. All right. Both in their prime, who wins, Ali or Tyson? Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Tyson. Possibly the unpopular opinion. I don't know. I know Muhammad Ali was good, and he gets a lot of worship for being. I don't think he was as good as people say he is. I think a lot of hype got behind him, and yeah, he beat some killers, and he was flashy, and he said it. He moved, and he stung, and he had a lot of stuff. But when Mike Tyson in his prime, when he gets on the inside, the system that he created for getting to the inside using the peekaboo stance with the metronome peekaboo movement style, the way his feet synchronized with his head to like really throw you off to generate maximum power. I think that his system was ahead of its time. And if you would have placed them both together, I think there's a good chance that Tyson could have knocked out Muhammad Ali. And Tyson also had the cardio to keep that rolling. I don't know if anybody in his prime ever saw Tyson get tired, but he just never stopped. And against the ropes, I mean, what he does to people's bodies, I think he could have done it. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Mike Tyson on that one. Could for some reason be wrong, but I feel like he was a more well-rounded athlete.
Gotcha.
With a way better coach.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite animal at the zoo?
Gorillas.
Gorilla is awesome. All right.
Yep. I started kind of trying to use some sign language with them because I just wanted to see what level of like understanding they could have. And actually had a relatively mind-blowing, cool-ass conversation with a gorilla from behind some glass about a year ago. And I looked over this gorilla and he was sitting by the glass and he wasn't really making eye contact with us. He was just like back to the glass, looking away, and he was sucking on a piece of grass. And then like I kind of like waited for him and he took like a little quick peek and then he seen me and I jumped and did like a 360. I was like, and I landed and he was just like, and then he like shook his head and like looked away. And then he looked back again and I did it again. And then he like would look away and I was like, and there's like 40 people there, right? But he's only watching me. And so then he looks back, I do it one more time, and then he just like kind of like gave me a little smirk. And then he looked back again. I was like, and then he looked over at me and then looked away. And then he looked over at this other gorilla that was kind of like patrolling a little bit. And he looked up at that gorilla and then back at me and shook his head and then came back down. And I was like,
what?
That motherfucker? And he's just like, and then I was like, I think the alpha, like prioritizes attention. And then he walked up and he sat down next to the glass and only he could sit down and look at these people. And all the people were like tapping the glass and he was just like, But then he would look over at the other gorillas to see if they were looking at the glass or anything. And if they were, he would like get up and like walk over to them, and they get up and leave. And so then I waited for the big gorilla, like the alpha, to like walk away. And then the other gorilla like looked over at me, and I was just like, like over him, I'm all like, and then he just like kind of like looked like he was kind of like just very entertained with this shit. But then I point over at another window, like it was a big facility, and there's a window on the opposite side. And I was like, maybe I can get this dude away from this alpha for a second, and we could have like a little bit of fun. And so I like pointed at the window, and I was like, I'm gonna go over there. And so I walked all the way around the facility to this window, and then I seen him. He was still sitting where we started. He was looking around. And then he looked over and he seen me, and I was just like, and then he like looks over at the alpha real quick, and then the alpha was like still looking at the other people, and the alpha like looks over at him, and he just like starts walking around, like just like picks up a fucking stick off the ground. He's like, and like starts like meandering over towards me, but acting like he ain't doing shit. Just as incoherent as possible, not making a straight line, but the distance was getting close. He'd look back and he'd just be like sniffing on some grass, and then the dude would look away, then he'd like kind of come over. And so, yeah, he made his way over to the window. And so I kind of was like, okay, I'm like, I see what you're saying here. And I was just like, I don't know how to also communicate, but I was like, I was trying, man. I'm like, I'm trying here. I'm just like, I was like, did my little chest thing, and I put my hand on the window, and the gorilla was just kind of like smiling and shit, and like kind of like puffing his chest out. He's like, what the fuck's up with this dude? But anyway, I remember like he looked back, and then the bigger one hopped up and started walk. So I jumped out of the window. I didn't want to get his ass beat, so he kind of like walked off and did his own thing. And I don't know, it felt like genuinely we were having a mutual understanding, and I will have a hard time having somebody convince me that there wasn't some degree of mutual understanding there, because it was kind of cool. And
hell yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll take a gorilla any day.
There we go.
One now.
All right. Because I know you were a fan of him, because you mentioned it earlier in the interview, and because I know you're a counter striker, maybe this will be a hard question. Again, both in their prime, who wins, GSP or Anderson Silva?
Yeah, that's a super fight that
we all missed.
I wanted to see it so badly, but at the same time, they were both undefeated for such a long time. I was like, shit. There was a time before he lost to Weidman that I thought Silva would never lose. And GSP just had been winning for so long. I was like, who would win? And I was like, well, Silva is a little bigger, like you got to give him that advantage. His timing is good. I mean, his wrestling isn't as good, but his jiu-jitsu is probably better. And, GSP didn't even wrestle before he started doing MMA, but he's a freak athlete. So his pressure is good. And he had like the least amount of time on his back out of everyone forever. And I'm like, how do you do that whenever you were never a wrestler? Like that's a big deal. And so I'm like, if GSP could get a takedown, which he usually does, he could probably ride it out. May not get the finish, but I'm like, but Silva at that time was doing some crazy shit with his striking. And I was just like, God, with the weight advantage, I just don't know. That's one where freaking man, they're both so good in so many different ways, but they kind of neutralize each other's strengths a little bit too. And just their level of greatness, their ability to problem solve, their toughness, and their never quit attitude. I don't know, man. I don't know if I can pick one of that one. I'm gonna have to leave you hanging.
All right. No worries. This next question's kind of odd, but I ask everyone because it matters to everyone. Your bathroom at home, the toilet paper roll, does it feed over the front of the roll towards you, or does it go down behind the roll?
Dude, we got so many freaking kids. We burn through toilet paper so fast. I just set that shit on the sink at this point. I'm like, by the time I pop that sucker off, I got a 6-year-old at home, 7-year-old, 9-year-old. They don't know how to like wipe without using half a roll. So, they'll be like freaking just wiping, clogging our toilet stuff, freaking dumb. Hey guys, we don't need to use this much toilet paper. And I'm like, but I'll just freaking, I'll see there's a little bit left. I'm like, freaking pull the next roll out. I'm like, whatever. It's like an everyday
On the
thing.
sink, on the tub, somewhere.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm like, you keep this up. I'm just gonna be like, yo, freaking screw it. Hop in the shower. I'm like, we're gonna freaking, we ain't doing this every day. But yeah,
That's great. I love it.
I don't got a preference. But if I had to say so, I think going over the top is better for me because it's my hand is closer to it. I can just grab it. I can always tear it. Behind maybe looks classier because it looks like it's kind of coming out of nowhere, but it just feels wrong. So
yeah. You got to worry about slamming your fingernails into whatever walls right behind the roller, grabbing for it.
Yeah, it's definitely got its own challenges. Yeah, we'll keep it on the outside.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I don't think it belongs on pizza. I would say that a select few people think that it has like an unbeatable flavor. I was never impressed with the way that pineapple mixes with the cheesy crust and the rest of the bite. It's kind of a lot. It kind of like takes me personally, it takes me like over, like a good pizza that has good flow and the cheesy crust, and those mix pretty goodly all by themselves. Yeah. I don't think it amplifies the flavor. I think it takes away from it, but hey, I know some people like their Canadian bacon and pineapple.
All right. A lot of fighters have strange superstitions, especially during fight camp. I've talked to guys that don't, MMA fighters that don't wash their cup for 2 months. Crazy things like that. Do you have any odd superstitions when you're in fight camp?
I wouldn't say that I'm very superstitious in that, but I do have like a full routine that I will always do. Okay. I will, as I'm rehydrating, I know my body just went through a lot. So I'll go outside, I'll ground, I'll put my body in contact with the earth. And then I'll try to recharge a little bit, considering, the negative electrons do benefit you. They relieve a tremendous amount of inflammation. Grounding is possibly the best anti-inflammatory on earth. So I'll do that, whether it's a swim or like just a walk in the grass for a while, but you got to get that inflammation out so your cells can work a little faster with their impulses. And so I'll do that. I always wear the same fight shorts. People probably see that. I'm a big, if it's not broken, don't fix it person. I listen to the same music every time I come out. If it works and I found it, I'll do it again. And then pretty soon it's just less to worry about. I don't want to be walking out and wonder, how is this fight song going to make me feel like on my way out? And if I've never ran it before, it sounds good in practice, but am I going to get anxious? Is it going to slow me down? Is it going to make me sad? I'm like, I need to be at a peak level here. So I'm like, if one song gets me to peak level, I'm going to do that again and then again. And then again, all right, I'm wearing the same shoes, same shorts, same song, freaking same mentality. I'm like, all right, was I in a peak mental state when I walked in? Hell yeah, I was, level 10. All right, then we're gonna do that again. Does smiling at my opponent fucking make me appear more threatening and like she doesn't hurt? Yeah. All right. Did I beat that guy? Yeah. All right. I'm probably gonna do that again too. And so pretty soon they're telling me afterwards, like, hey man, like you were smirking at me and shit, and I couldn't tell if I was hurting you. So it's kind of like throwing me off a little bit. And I was just like, I didn't realize I was doing it, but I do like messing with people. So yeah, I eat, I'm all big into like nutrition. It's like I always I come back and I like do my beets, I'm doing my cayenne pepper now, honey. Like I'm big into just doing those things. And so I wouldn't say they're necessarily superstitious, but I mean, like I'll like talk to myself, like I'll be like, Josh, hey, you put a lot of work into this, and I'll let my vocal cords, send out the vibration everywhere. I'll let the whole body feel it. And I'm like, hey, we have to win this one. Hey, I'll be talking to my mind. I talk to my body, like my mind and my body are separate. And I'll be like, mind is the general, the body is the army. And I'm just like, hey guys, I'm going to be the best general out there. I'm doing my best to make sure that, I'm putting you into this environment and we're going to come out. I'm giving you the strength you need. I gave you the best weight cut. We're going to fully rehydrate and we're going to party like champions when we're done. Nobody in the world can do this, but like we are the best. We're going to go out there and show we're the best, that we can keep spreading positivity and vibes, because that's what we care about. And I'll get every part of who I am on board with this and try to inspire my own body to want to be more. Like we got to be as fast as we can. We got to be as strong as we can. When I say go, you go. Like, I don't want you, we can't be scared. Like if I say go and you guys are scared and then that adrenaline dump hits and I'm like, I don't want to do it. Like, we're not doing that. Like, when I say go, you go. I say slip, you slip. I say rip, you rip, and like getting my body on track with my mind. So when we enter, we're a unit. I just freaking bam, bam, bam. I work it out. I talk to my mind. Hey, you got this. Like, you are smart enough to handle this. Those things that you were said about you when you were a kid, they don't matter. They don't slow you down. Those people didn't know shit. So I'm trying to prime myself everywhere, regardless of whether it's real or not. I'm more effective when I do it. So I'm going to do those traditions. So that way, when I get in that ring, I believe that I have the highest chance of winning. So I'm going after everything.
Gotcha. All right. It's Saturday. Who do you root harder for? The Coyotes or the Jackrabbits?
Well, considering I was a SCSU captain of the cheerleading team for 2 years, I'd have to lean. What's that?
Kindle,
brother. Yeah, I probably go with the Jacks, but I kind of when it comes to like other sports, I don't really watch much TV anymore. I feel like my life, I have to be optimized to be just the best at what I can be, and I don't necessarily have time to invest in other sports and like rooting people on and shit. So it's tough. Like I haven't watched a game in forever. I don't even watch UFC. I don't watch much of anything. I feel like there's so many other areas of my life that deserve my time more. Sure. That I can improve my whole quality of life by just being there for the family directly, being at work directly, training directly, like just keeping my amount of things that I do small. I can keep the rest of my life under control. So yeah, I don't watch much TV and all that.
All right. This next question's a odd one, but I ask everyone. You are on your way to commit a bank robbery, and you need to take 2 people with you, a gunman and a getaway driver. Who are you taking?
I'm no stranger to planning out bank robberies, so I would say that unfortunately, I've learned that there's 3 rules to robbing banks. Rule number 1, don't trust anybody. Rule number 2, don't tell anybody. Rule number 3, do your homework. Okay? You follow those 3 rules and you'll be all right. Unfortunately, no matter how much you trust your best friend or your girl or whoever the fuck you think you can trust, you can't. So if you're going to pull something off like that kind of heist, you understand that you are in it alone. You don't have a team. This ain't Ocean's 11, right?
Right.
Every single one of those people are going to talk and they're going to get busted and then they're going to sell you out so they don't have to go. So if you're trying to have a successful, come up in the bank robbing world, if you want to be able to live the rest of your life without having to kill your team first, you might as well just do it alone because you'll be stressing, right? You break up with your girlfriend. Oops, there goes all your loyalty. Your homeboy runs out of money. Hey man, can I get some ears? Oh shit, now you're in trouble here. Oh, homeboy gets caught and you're not there for him because he put himself in a shit situation and he needs you, but you're like, bro, I will literally fuck my whole world up if I come over to you right now. You should have called me ahead of time. You're fucked. Right. So no, do it alone. You have a AI sniper, 200 yards away. And then you have another AI sniper about 100 yards away, from different angle vectors, and then you have another one in case you got to go all the back. Right. And then a couple sides. And then your getaway, you're probably just going to want to be on a motorcycle. Right.
Self-driving car.
Yeah, self-driving's cool, but they're traceable. So you're going to need a very fast crotch rocket, right? You got to have to get to a crotch rocket and then go because that's about the only way you're outrunning everything else on the road. So blacked out crotch rocket, no license plates, no insurance, not registered to your name. You just get on and you go. And it better be freaking running when you jump on it and filled up with gas. And you get to a safe spot, ditch the bike, freaking ditch the shit somewhere, lay low, freaking in the woods for like 2 weeks, let everything chill out, bury it, come walking out like you're freaking homeless, and you forget about that shit. Yeah, you forget about it for like 6 months to a year, and then you can come back and make sure everything's chill. Yep, that's how you rob a bank.
There we go. All right, man. For people that are going to watch this that may be feeling broken or like giving up, what message would you share with them about staying strong and coming out on the other side?
The first thing that you're going to have to do is realize that there's a lot of shit that we're not taught about how our body works and how our minds work, and just realize that a lot of that is programmed into you to fuel like money and sales and stuff. So, you're going to feel like shit because they purposely make you feel like shit. And then you're going to go and buy their medications, and then your antidepressants. And then next thing you know, it's shutting down your organs. And, now you're classified as a crazy person. And, now you don't have certain rights. And, they have this whole little system set up to where they're going to come at you. So you got to understand right off the bat that these people have never had anything beneficial to do for you. You have been exploited your whole life. So the first thing you have to remember is basically everything you've been taught about how you work mentally and emotionally and physically is all wrong. You need to figure out who you are. You need to start talking to yourself, a little bit of meditation. You got to work your way to the inside. You got to figure out, who am I? What do I really care about? What makes me me? Why am I special? And then focus on the things that are good about yourself. I care about standing up for the little man, or, I do have a decent work ethic, or I do keep my word at least. I might be a piece of shit in these areas, but I do this good. Start focusing on those things. They want to label everybody as the same. They put everybody through the same program, think the same way, do the same thing, have all the same skills. Then you all have to compete against each other. Become your own superstar, your own guy. Create yourself. Once you realize that you can speak things into existence, you can literally do anything, and except fly. So I wouldn't jump off a house or anything, but you can essentially tell yourself what you want, and then every day tell yourself that, and begin taking tiny little baby steps every day towards getting that. I told myself 6 years ago I was going to be a world champion bare knuckle fighter, and every day I wake up, and even if I don't do anything that day that makes me get closer to it, I remind myself, you're still the best. You're the best right now. You're going to keep becoming better, but right now you're already the best. And your body will start making changes. Your mindset will start making changes over time, until you start, when you think about who the best fighter in the world is, you actually think it's you. You're like, oh, really? And because you think it's you, you're like, well, I might as well go a little harder in this workout. I might as well learn a new skill today. Since if this is my thing, I might as well learn it, and then might as well keep going, and might as well not quit. And, and then when those things start working out for you, it gets really freaking awesome. And I would just say that positive self-talk is huge. There's a lot of science out that says that, your body and your subconscious don't know the difference between a truth and a lie. So if you say something verbally, or even repeat a thought enough times, the rest of your subconscious and body doesn't know what's true or not. Your subconscious's only job is a supercomputer. It's designed to solve problems. So if you tell yourself, I'm a loser, I'm never going to win, your subconscious goes, oh, I am a loser and I'm not meant to win. So I'm going to make that a reality, because that's what your subconscious does. It takes problems that you are trying to solve, and it just turns them into a reality, and you become that. And so if you just keep saying, I'm the best, I am the smartest, they're not true things yet, but by saying them over and over, your subconscious is going to go, oh, really? I didn't know that. Well, let's go ahead and just be it. And then pretty soon memory starts getting better. You start remembering people's names. You're like, oh, I used to forget that shit kind of fast. You start thinking about problems. You hear shit and you go, that's bullshit. You're like, no, that doesn't add up. But everybody else can't. They're like, wait, what? Yeah, I'll just believe it. And you're like, okay, what the fuck? You start waking up and realizing that, hey, like when I allow my brain to function properly, it's actually really hard to confuse me. Like I'm really like I can spot a lie a mile away now. I'm like, there's no factual basis behind that shit. I'm like, that's complete trash. I'm like, let me go and research it. No, all the evidence is pointing the other way. So I'm like, it's at least worth a debate. And then when they don't want to debate about it, you're like, kind of making this argument easy for me here. But I would just say, don't give up. Just don't quit. Positive affirmations. If you have to look into a mirror, it's corny as shit. Just do it. I mean, I had to do it. You know, I had to do it. I looked in the mirror the first time and I'm like, Josh, you're the best bare knuckle fighter in the world. You're the world champion. You're going to fucking get this. And I felt so dumb. You know, my girlfriend's in the next room over there listening to this shit. She's like, what the fuck? And I was like, hey, I don't know. It might work, it might not work. But you want to know what? A lot of people said it might work. And if it only takes 30 seconds and it's what they're saying, 30 seconds. It's Is it still there?
Yep, there we are.
Gotcha.
Yep. Alrighty. Let's see here. What is something that you really enjoy that people don't know about?
That's a tough one. I'm pretty transparent. I kind of just tell people what I like. I just really, really enjoy like finding out the truth. You know, it's like a little mini addiction for me, is that like it's so fun to like just believe something your whole life
Mm-hmm.
and then start questioning it and just be like, why do I believe this? I'm like, well, I was told by this person, this person, this person, this media website, this movie, and this and that. And I'm like, okay, so I mean, odds are they wouldn't all be saying this if it was a lie, would they? Well, out of curiosity, let's go and like look at like what actual research has been done on this topic, and just for the heck of it, check it out. And then you start researching things, and you go, well, all the evidence points to that. That's the exact opposite of what's being told mainstream. And I'm like, well, it doesn't mean that I'm right. It doesn't mean I'm wrong, but the evidence is extremely stacked on the other side, and there's virtually no evidence on the other side. And then you're seeing it just getting broadcasted everywhere. And I'm like, well, it is disingenuous to broadcast shitloads of like statements that can't actually be backed up, you know, when there's so much evidence on the other side. So now I start questioning everything you say. Well, then I start realizing, oh my God, like basically the truth is just the opposite of everything certain media outlets say. And you're like, these motherfuckers, wow. Like every time I check in on it, it's the exact opposite. And I'm just like, so they're lying to us about everything. So I get intrigued by that, you know, and it's not necessarily like it's the most fun thing in the world to realize you've been lied to, but it's fun to catch a liar in a lie and to be like, well, you didn't get me. You didn't get me, but good job. I'm like, that was a world-class presentation, but you didn't get me. I'm like, almost. So I'll give you a round of applause. I'm like, you guys fucking put that everywhere. I'm like, wow. I'm like, yeah.
What is the best way for fans and friends of yours to keep up with you these days?
The easiest way is going to be like Facebook, Messenger, Instagram. You know, just shoot me a message. You know, yeah, I got a lot of messages coming in, but it's still the best way. You know, like I check those as much as I can. I get back to people when I can. I still got like another probably 50-ish people to get back to, but I spent all day Monday just replying to everyone, getting everything set up, and like trying to like reach back out to sponsors and, you know, people congratulating me, all the people that like honestly matter the most. You know, I'm just like, thank you. Like, you guys you have no idea like how much of an honor it is to get out there and perform and have you guys watch and talk about it and like get me a call back so I can do this again and I get a paycheck. And I'm like, so I'm extremely grateful because I literally wouldn't get a call if it was not for you guys. And I know that because I've been sat on my ass for a year at a time, you know, because I just wasn't making sales. Like, all right, should we call Josh? No, because he's going to get like 10 grand this time, and he's only going to sell 5,000 in pay-per-views tops. So we're going to lose 5 grand to have him, and he's probably going to beat our ticket seller. So that's kind of like a double whammy to us in our pocketbook. So no, we're going to sit this dude for another year. We'll come up with something. We'll figure out how to use him. And so it's just a lot of waiting and planning and shit. So I'm like, it's like this dude can't just be like a loser. He can't just come in and lose and make our ticket seller look good. No, he has to win too. So I know I pissed off a lot of people in the bare knuckle community. I've heard some comments that have been made after I've won fights that made me believe that I wasn't supposed to win. And I'm just like, it is what it is. Like, I was aware that this was the game when I started. I knew that I wasn't going to be a crowd favorite because I'm a nobody. So I'm just a dude, man. I'm a painter. You know,
You're not a nobody to me, Josh. I'm all out of questions, man. I want to say thank you very much. From deep down in here, I'm always honored and grateful when professional fighters take time out of their lives to share their stories with the people in this community on this podcast. I will go ahead and upload this to YouTube as soon as it's done. I will send you the first copy, man. If for
appreciate
any
that.
reason you don't like it, if you want to check it out and you don't like it, I'll take it down immediately.
Hey, we should be good, man. I got no problems with this. You share it, I'll share it, and appreciate your time as well.
Thank you very much,
Great
Josh. I
questions,
can't
by the
wait
way,
to
dude. Making me go
thank
deep. I don't normally get asked questions like that.
That's why I asked ahead of time. I was like, "Do you maybe want to see any of these?" But
No,
I
man.
think it worked out
I
good.
like it being authentic,
Okay.
and I appreciate that. Sorry for the long
Whoa.
pauses every now and then, but I just wanted to give you like my first thought and roll with it.
I
So
appreciate that. All
absolutely,
right,
brother.
Josh. Have a great
All right.
rest of your day, man. I'll
Right
talk to
back
you
at you,
soon.
man. Take it easy.
Bye bye.